Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, let's discuss a movie recently released on Disney Plus, Artemis Fowl. Or rather, let's discuss all of the issues I had with Artemis Fowl, and there are a lot of issues with this movie. First off, it's very unclear what kind of movie this was. Was this a rescue movie? Or was it a heist movie where nothing is really stolen? Or was it an adventure movie that took place inside of one house? The movie isn't clear on what it wants to be. That's probably because it tries to cram 3 books of source material into just 90 minutes, then went through so many changes that it's virtually unrecognizable to anybody even remotely familiar with the source material. All of the setup, details, unique characterization, and satisfying payoffs that matter to the audience were either thrown out or just plain forgotten. And it's even more confusing for the audience who aren't familiar with the source material. This movie was terribly planned and mediocrely executed, and for a movie that took nearly 2 decades to get made, there simply isn't much to show for it. For the quality of the source material, the power of Disney behind it, and a budget of over $120 million, this movie was an exceptional disappointment that leaves way too many questions about all of the things that went wrong. Let's start with the plot. This movie relies on way too many coincidences to move the story forward. Here are just a few. A troll makes it up to the real world without ever being noticed until he's already there, and the only officer available to stop him is Holly Short, whom Commander Root knew was at least thinking about going rogue in order to clear her father's name. There were clearly more elves available, as they arrived only minutes later to wipe the memories of the wedding guests. And seemingly all of the elves were immediately available to storm the beach, presumably only a few hours later. And all of this just so happens on the very same night the butler is staking out the site her father went missing. And the person who shows up is none other than Holly Short, the exact elf necessary, all because her father helped Artemis Sr., which kicks off the events of this movie in the first place. This setup was entirely too perfect, as if it had all been planned by a mastermind.
I'm Artemis Fowl, and I'm a criminal mastermind.
Or written with zero concern for logic or the craft to allow the story to flow organically, rather than forcefully jumping to the points necessary to move the story forward. Then there's the character development, or lack thereof, that only made things worse. It's made clear at the beginning that Artemis Fowl is a next-level genius.
When he was 7, he beat European chess champion Evan Khashoggi in 5 moves. When he was 9, he won the architectural competition to design the Dublin Opera House. When he was 10, he cloned a goat and named it Bruce.
But we never get to see him demonstrate his intellect in any substantive or plausible way. His ability to master the things were shown immediately after learning about them, and it's incredibly unbelievable, even if he had been groomed for it his whole life. Stories and poems read to you as a child don't teach you how magical weapons work or how to socially engineer outcomes with a species you never even believed existed until yesterday.
Time to believe in fairies, but they're not real. Are they?
There's absolutely no way to anticipate the response of a police corps after one of their own goes AWOL.
You'll never get away with this. My people will come for me.
That's what I hoped you'd say.
Or be able to know exactly how long before a super advanced magical device will fail, or even what it is in the first place before it was ever deployed in his area. And yet he does all of this and more because
I'm Artemis Fowl, and I'm a criminal mastermind.
Really? And then he just accepts all of this earth-shattering news and befriends an elf, which brings up even more inconsistencies. Why was his trust so easily given to Holly? Artemis had her shot down, locked in a cage, and had only formally met her just a few minutes beforehand. Yet he still trusts her mere minutes later, with no indication that she was on his side. That's just not something any reasonable person, especially a genius mastermind, would ever do. And vice versa. For someone who had been shot at, shot down, and imprisoned, Holly gets over everything pretty quickly after a single conversation about their fathers and a half-hearted punch. She could have easily escaped right then, but for some unknown reason, except their father's acquaintance, she stays. In fact, the only character that made sense was the butler and him knowing the things he did. He had worked with Artemis Sr. for years, he knew about the secret room and the fairy world. He would have made a more compelling protagonist rather than the kid who showed even less emotion than him. But then again, there was still so much that he didn't know, and even more that he shouldn't have known, like how fairy weapons worked. Then there was his niece, and I still don't know the point of her character. She literally shows up and doesn't do a thing except offer Artemis a sandwich. I know this is a kids movie, so maybe they just needed another kid in it, but come on, they couldn't find a single useful thing for her to do? This movie was supposed to be the start of a franchise for Artemis Fowl, but it fails to even accomplish some of the most necessary objectives for such a film. The rules were never clearly established. Humans couldn't know about fairies, but Fowl and friends clearly have for years. The fairies can erase the memories of dozens of people at once, but never thought to do that to Artemis. The fairies travel to the surface, sometimes through volcanoes and sometimes through the ocean floor. They're technologically superior, but choose to hide from the humans. Their time freeze can freeze time inside of its bubble, except when they choose not to. Why didn't they just freeze everyone inside the house and take what they wanted? And if they didn't freeze time, then why use the time freeze at all? And then there's the story's random connection to the outside world. How did this conflict with the fairies translate into headlines about art theft? And why was Mulch Diggums captured by MI6 when he could have easily escaped? He's not from the surfer's world, so there's absolutely no way he could have been connected to any crime, or have even been known by the humans at all. All of that was just so he could tell them a story that he knew they wouldn't believe, or because the movie just needed a narrator. Speaking of narration, this movie tells us everything we're supposed to know. Characters, motivations, plot, action, backstory. None of it is ever shown to the audience. It's almost always told through voiceover, and the movie just expects the audience to take it as an absolute fact. We're supposed to care about these characters because the movie wants us to, without ever giving us any reason that we should. We're never given anything to endear us to a single character, just basic qualities about them from info dumps throughout the movie. And we never have the chance to get invested in this world either, because the movie teases us with the fairy world, but then spends the majority of the time in a single location. Simply put, there's no reason for us to care about any of these characters, or the plot, or any storyline. Instead, we're just left with the lackluster affair of bad CGI and VFX, mixed with half-baked storytelling, sprinkled with horrible characterization. Honestly, I have no idea what to think of this movie. If you've got any opinions or thoughts or commentary or insights about this movie, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day, and be sure to watch a great movie. Bye.
Not happy.